Good news can often get overlooked or buried by the negative in our everyday lives. So let's change that. I'm Adrianna.
And I'm Wyatt.
We're just two ordinary people without any special qualifications or anything, trying to navigate life. We invite you to join us as we share wholesome stories, news articles of hope, and ideas about how we can all make the world just a little bit brighter. We are uplifting positive stories. Welcome back to another episode of Uplifting Positive Stories. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, glad to be here. Now we're approaching the end of our busy wedding season. Thank goodness. It's been great. All the couples have been amazing.
Really nice couples.
But it's time for a little bit of rest from that.
Yes, I feel like I am becoming one with my computer when it comes to editing. I'm editing constantly. So
yeah, you were up to like 5 a.m. last night.
We don't talk about that. But yeah.
So then we got a fun family trip coming up. So
we do. So, and we'll have an episode. That's a couple episodes from now, but it'll be a fun travel themed episode. So keep an eye out looking for that.
Mm-hmm.
But for
fun things coming.
Yes, fun things coming.
After all the months of busy work.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, for today's episode, our theme today is taking initiative. And it's all about not expecting other people to be the ones to do the first step when it comes to doing something positive, and instead taking that opportunity yourself to be the one to do it. And maybe even starting a trend or a change just from your action that you do that helps somebody. So we got
a subtitle for that could be easier said than done.
100%. It's always hard to be the first one to do anything. And so taking that initiative and taking that first step to be a leader and do something positive isn't always easy. But it's something that we should do, because if we don't, someone else might not take that initiative, and then no one's helping, and then you're just stuck with people just standing there not sure what to do. So it's not going to help anybody.
I think it's like the old argument of like, you know, if you imagine a world where nobody takes initiative and everybody just waits for someone else to do something, in that world, nothing would get done.
Right, exactly.
Nothing. Do we want to live in that world?
No, exactly. Our first story for today comes from the Reddit thread, "What's the most wholesome experience you've had?" And it says, "I was driving to work, and down the slope of the 4-lane highway, my tire popped or ran over something. Either way, it was a bad time. I went from the far right lane, left across the 4, spun around and back across, only to stop facing the rail in the pullout with my back wheels still in the furthest most right lane. Scary. I didn't hit a single person. I wasn't injured. No one else was injured or hit anyone. It was kind of the perfect situation. I was terrified and crying and gripping my steering wheel. I was also a 21-year-old woman. The first stranger pulls over, is a woman that runs out and opens my door and makes sure I'm in park and kind of gets me out and tells me I'm okay and is just reassuring me. The second stranger stops, sees that the first woman's okay and has it and kind of goes on. Then an Astro van with what seems like a clown car level of dudes just pops out wordlessly, takes my keys, and just changes my tire with my spare and moves my car so it's not in the highway. During this whole thing, a sheriff pulls over and tells me how nice my friends are that they got there so fast. I'm just dazed, sobbing, I don't know any of these people, but they're all so wonderful. And then they all just left. 10 out of 10, I would have my tire pop on 118 between Los Angeles and Simi Valley. No longer living there.
First off, scary situation. Glad everybody's okay. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, in Minnesota, that'd be like wintertime. Like, obviously in this case, it was like a pop tire, but like that could happen like sliding across ice or something. Oh yeah,
it happens all the time here. 100%. And the fact that she didn't hit anybody and that going across multiple lanes and stuff, like, oh my gosh. Especially, it sounds like Los Angeles area. That's terrifying.
Yeah, a lot of cars there.
But yeah, that first woman, though, took the initiative to stop and make sure that she was okay and made sure. And then the other person was gonna stop, but then saw that the woman had it. And I just think that's so funny, that imagery of a clown car level of guys just being like, we got this, guys. Come on, let's change your tire. You know, like, we got this. But if that first woman hadn't stopped, you never know if that next car would have stopped. You never know if that group of people that went and changed her tire would have stopped. But sometimes just seeing someone else doing it is like, oh, okay, I can do that. I can stop and help them, you know? It's just being that first person to do that. Because if you just drive past, who knows if that woman was okay in that front seat? You never know.
Mm-hmm. I feel like the more people that are around, you're more likely to be like, okay, someone else has got it.
Right.
You know? So to have that first woman stop and then others as well, like so fast after,
Right.
is great. And that's
Yeah.
affirming that people do care and do, are willing to take immediate action. And like,
Yes.
most people when they're driving somewhere are like, okay, I'm in a hurry, I gotta get somewhere. But like, okay, I'm going to take, on paper, it seems obvious that like, oh yeah, of course you should stop to help somebody. But I feel like a lot of people don't, or just, again,
Right.
assume that the next person's got it.
Yep. And also I feel there's also the concern that you don't know how to help them. And
Yeah,
so
that's true.
But this was a perfect example of that first woman maybe didn't know how to change a tire. She didn't offer to help her change her tire, but she was the person that just said, "Are you okay?"
Mm-hmm.
And that in itself is super helpful in that situation. Like, do you need me to call 911 for you? Do you need me to do anything for you to help you out right now? Because I know you're probably a little traumatized by what just happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that anyone can do.
Yeah.
So being that person, and then there was that group of people that pulled over that did know how to change a tire and they had the tools for it. So there's different ways you can help. Just because you might not have the expertise or know-how of how to help someone specifically with the problem they have, you can at least help in finding someone that does in a situation like that. So there's always a way you can try to help. It's just big or small. So yeah.
Yeah. I know when I was working in TV news and I was in charge of the cars to a certain extent. I know there was one time, I won't get too in detail with it, but there was like an incident that happened. Porter got rear-ended in the car. They called me about it. I walked in the situation. I was on my off day, and as we're talking, I was like, "Oh, I don't think anyone's gonna help you if I don't. So I better drop everything and go coordinate the tow and get them out of there and stuff." And like, so I wasn't in the immediate vicinity of that incident, but like in conversing with them, I identified I need to be willing to go out there and take care of this,
Right, 100%. Yeah, it's good to do. All right, so our next story is actually one that was submitted by a listener. So very excited to share this. It's a great story. Thank you so much again to the person that sent this in. I love this story and I can't wait. It's perfect for this theme.
Our first listener submitted story.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So submit your stories. We will read them.
We will. And they're
if
so
they are
fun.
Positive.
They're so fun to read. So here is the story. I was in high school, must have been 13 or 14. Then I went back home alone in the afternoons, and I lived 30 kilometers away, so I had to take a bus. The problem I faced one day was I had forgotten my wallet with my bus pass and all of my money. I had seen people ask others for money for the bus, so I started doing that. I think I needed €2.50. I got €1 here, was denied by someone else because they didn't have money or they didn't believe me. Then I reached a blonde lady that answered my plea with, "Of course," and reached for her purse. I was relieved because it really seemed I could go home already. However, her face fell when she looked inside her wallet and said, "Oh, I only have a €10 bill." I was disheartened. I had to start asking again, and if I lost the bus, it was going to be a very long time waiting, and what if I didn't end up getting enough money? But I didn't have time to ponder much, because a second or two after seeing her wallet, the lady's face turned pensive. She looked at me and said, maybe more to herself than to me, "What if I give it to you anyway?" I froze. What? It was way more than I needed. What? Who would do that? And this is what I remember the most. Even though it was more than 2 decades ago and I've forgotten her features, I still remember her face lighting up with joy as she silently offered me the €10 bill. I stammered. I told her it wasn't necessary. I could ask someone else. But she insisted. She wanted to do this. She seemed so happy. I told her that it was more than I needed, but she either said, I don't remember exactly, to use the rest to help someone in need or to help someone else when I could. In any case, the message was clear. I feel that my parents didn't believe in people helping strangers. They were more stranger danger kind of thinkers. So this was a big shock and a huge lesson for me. I remember my humble gratitude, my puzzledness at her joy for doing this, and my resolution that I'd honor her wishes. I am 35 now, and I have tried to do acts of kindness throughout my life. The first ones were inspired by that lady, but I quickly saw how good it feels. How happy it can make you to think that maybe one of your kind acts changed someone's day. Maybe inspire them to do something similar. And now, I understand why her face lit up like that. One day, I was having a conversation with my mother at the beach, and close to us, a truck got stuck in the sand. 1 or 2 people were walking up to help. I looked over, and my mom insisted I let them be. They had gotten themselves into that situation. But after hesitating for a moment, I asked her to wait and I ran up there. As always, the first person attracts the second, and so on. By the time we finished gathering, we were around 15. We took the truck out of the problematic zone in no time, and besides the heartfelt thanks from the driver, all the people that had pushed, high-fived, and shared smiles and were bonded by something special. That person couldn't have done it alone, but it took 2 minutes for people to gather, without them even having enough time to get out of the car and ask. When I came back to my mother, she looked very pensive and quietly admitted that now she would have wanted to go help too. I nodded, and I told her something that now I know it's what that lady was feeling. Helping someone else is not a burden. It's a privilege, an opportunity. I've seen homeless people in the winter and gifted them blankets, cold water bottles in the summer, bags of canned food that wouldn't go bad without a fridge. I've paid for my coffee and for the next coffee someone ordered. I regularly gift my neighbors houseplants or crops from my vegetable garden. I work at a hospital phone desk, and I always try my best to get people solutions, or at least kindness, compassion, and a listening ear. I want to write a book that can help people manage their bills and live alone easier, so that all I've learned through hardship, or because someone was kind enough to teach me, can be of use to others. And when a teacher asked for money at the subway telling us she'd been laid off, I gave her a €20 bill. She looked at me as if she didn't believe it. I shared a compassionate smile with her, and suddenly we were sharing a hug that she seemed to really need. Of course, I've also received my share of kindness. I forgot my purse in a subway station. Realized when I had already left. When I came back, it had been taken to security. Money, cards, MP3, everything still inside. People pushing when my car broke down. Someone I didn't know trying to fix it for me while I was getting anxiety in the rain because it didn't start. Strangers seeing me struggling while carrying something heavy and immediately coming to help, saying that their elderly parents lived nearby, and if they needed help, they would like that they got it too. There's a donation spot near my house where I got my first air conditioner that got my boyfriend out of heat shock. When I got a new one, I donated that one again. It's about all of us. I don't think one person can change the world, but that each of us can try and make our little corners of it a little bit better. I try to live my life guided by love, and I am so filled with joy doing so. It just makes me really happy, makes me feel complete, satisfied with my life and what I'm doing with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
First off, listener, you're incredible.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to dissect every little detail of the whole story, because there were so many little stories within there, you know?
Yeah, but it
tells
so powerful.
a wide theme of, just being intentionally generous and just empathetic and caring about others after it was shown to you. I mean, I wouldn't go so far to say as like, oh, that one moment of kindness for her sparked everything else, but maybe fueled a spark that was already inside of her potential, you know, because I feel like if you're someone that's not a generally positive person, one act might not necessarily like spark you necessarily. But if you already are someone who, does care and like wants to help, maybe doesn't have the confidence or the know-how of how to help somebody, that maybe that then sparked her to then actually take action upon, trying to be helpful and stuff. And
yeah.
Fortunate that also someone was able to she's able to find the money and get home safely, Nowadays it's kind of hard. Admittedly, and I've been asked from people for some cash. I don't usually have cash on me, which is...
it's true. A lot of people don't carry around cash these days, which makes it hard for stuff like that, like transportation and stuff, to give like that. So
that being said, we've tried to do workaround with like getting gift cards like to the grocery store to people in need and stuff.
And then we
like
just have those instead of carrying cash. We have those on standby in case we need to give. Like if we see somebody that needs some money or whatever, we'll give them that.
But that doesn't help with the specific need though of like needing transportation to get somewhere.
Right, 100%.
In that specific circumstance.
Yeah, for sure. So that was just awesome. And I love the line, helping someone else is not a burden, it's a privilege and opportunity. And that change of mindset of, oh, this could be inconvenient because I have to go out of my way to do this. And instead look at it as, I have an opportunity to really make someone's day. And that's going to make me happy. And saying how that surprised her when that woman's face lit up with joy. And she was like, why does she seem so happy about this? And then realizing what that was later in life and being like, oh, it's because it truly made that person's day to do that. It made her happy to be able to help me out in that situation. And now I'm realizing it makes me happy doing that too. Like, it's just, once you have that shift in mindset where you look at it as an opportunity to make someone's day instead of just like, oh, I guess I'll go help this person because they need it. It really does start to flip, and it starts to become like when you're helping somebody, you're also helping yourself to some degree. You're making your own spirits happier. And the more you do it, the more you realize that like, wow, this really does make me happy helping people and taking that initiative, that opportunity, and actually taking it, doing it. So yeah, I love this story. There's like you said, it's a bunch of like little stories all together, but like when you bundle them all together, it's awesome. So thank you so much for sending that in. That is such a cool story. And yeah, if any of you listeners have more stories like this, we would love to be able to share them. It's just so awesome to share positivity that people are doing out there in the world. It's so fun. So
And we do keep it anonymous.
we do, yeah. And there are so many ways you can send it in to us. At the end of the episode, we always go through that. And we also have down in the description below on every episode, ways that you can send them in. So yeah. Thank you so much to the listener that sent this in. On to our next story. This one comes from the thread, What's the Most Wholesome Experience You've Had? And it says, a few years ago in a Walmart parking lot, a woman was trying to get her service dog in her SUV. She was struggling, so I offered my help. I picked up the dog, a golden retriever, and he was able to get up into the back. She explained that it was a new car and she forgot the fold-out steps at home. I told her it was not a problem and took her cart to the return. When I was walking back, she called to me and said she wanted to thank me properly and had something to show me. She had a lion's mane hat for her dog for Halloween. It was close to that time, and she put it on him. It was the most adorable thing, and I thought it was so sweet that she wanted to thank me like that. I will never forget it, and it just makes me smile when I think of that interaction. So I thought that was just sweet. With Halloween approaching, I thought it was fitting. And also just an example of it doesn't always have to be a big thing, you know? It can be something if you notice somebody's struggling with something. Maybe they're holding something, grab the door. If they're struggling to get into their car, offer if you can help them out. Like there's just a lot of little small ways you can help somebody out that you can just be looking for. Again, looking for that opportunity to help somebody out.
That being said, I'm just going to go ahead and assume that they did in the story, but it just doesn't mention it.
Yeah.
But like if you're touching a dog, maybe like run it by them before you grab the dog. Because I'm sure some...
just pick someone's dog up without
asking. Yeah. No. I'm going to go ahead and assume that that's what happened and they just left out that little detail.
It says that, no, she said she offered to help.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, I just missed that. All right.
Yes, always ask before you help somebody in that way. Yes, but
if they drop something else, like you can pick it up.
All right, one more story from the same thread. This one says, I was driving to the grocery store. I saw an accident across the street. It looked like one of the drivers was hurt, so I turned around to see if any assistance was needed. The driver was a young teenager and was just sitting in the driver's seat crying. I asked him if he was hurt, and he said no. Then I questioned whether the police had been called. The other driver informed me that they were on their way. I asked the young man if he wanted me to wait until the police arrived, and he said yes. He continued to cry, and I said, would you like a mom hug? He practically threw himself in my arms and just cried on my shoulder. I stayed a few minutes, the cops came, and he pulled himself together. I'm very glad that I was in the right place at the right time. And then a couple comments, someone said, as the mom of a teen boy, this one really got me. Thank you, I'm glad there's people like you in the world. And then the OP responded, aw, thanks. My son is 19 and that's all I could picture. I had to do something. His mom actually called while I was with him and he told her that a nice lady had stopped. Just doing my part for the betterment of the world. So, yeah.
I feel like, I mean, that's really nice because, you know, car accidents, they're traumatizing in general, but they're especially traumatizing when you're young.
When you're younger, yeah.
If you're 100%. A teenager in high school or even a little bit after, like it's a lot. Like I remember I got on a little fender bender when I was like 18, like freshman in college, and I remember just sobbing and just like uncontrollable. I mean, everyone was fine. I was fine. Car was damaged, but I felt like the world had ended and like everything. And
yeah, you don't know, like you know, in theory the steps that you'll have to do and stuff, but you don't really like think about, okay, this is what you do, this is how you handle it, this is what the outcomes are going to be of this situation. You don't really think about it till you're in it. And so when you're in it, you go to the worst case scenarios, like, oh my gosh, my life is over. They're going to take away my license. You know, like you go to like the worst case scenarios. And so to be the person to kind of be like, hey, I'm just going to give you empathy and compassion in this moment where you're probably just freaking out. And, you know, it sounds like he was driving by himself. So that's also, you know, in that moment to be alone. So... And it's just very sweet that he was on the phone with his mom and was like, yeah, a nice lady stopped. I'm sure the mom was really thankful that that nice person stopped and was there for her boy when she couldn't be, besides being on the phone.
And I just feel like just showing any kind of compassion in that kind of moment, I feel like is really, really important.
100%.
Yeah, there's definitely ways that situation can be made worse, and that's one where it could be
because you
made.
never know how the other driver is going to react, especially if he was at fault. Like,
Well, plus
some
when you're
people,
younger too.
that too.
I'm not gonna name anybody, but like I had friends that like had gotten accidents when they're in high school, and like people can be mean, and
They can
friends
be.
can be like bullies, like, oh, you're an awful driver, you know, an accident happens, it might not have been their fault.
Right.
And I mean, that's just throwing salt in the wound unnecessarily, you know.
Exactly.
And so to have someone like show them that kindness, maybe people were mean to this kid later, but at least who knows what happened after the accident. But at the
Right.
very least, he had this positive interaction with
Yep.
this woman that was just make sure, hey, you're okay, your world,
Yep.
life's not over.
Right.
You're gonna wake up tomorrow and you're gonna move on with your life.
It'll be
And then
okay.
10 years from now, you look like, oh yeah, that happened.
Yep.
You know.
Exactly. Our last story of the day is our news article. And this one is titled, Mom's Viral Post Reminds Strangers to Be Kind to Overwhelmed Parents. And this comes from HuffPost. The story is about a Napa mom named Hannah Young that reached out to an anchor at KTVU News to let them know about a positive experience she had while shopping at a Trader Joe's with her kids. So basically, she was going shopping at a grocery store with an 11-month-old boy and a completely independent three-nager, so a little 3-year-old, basically saying that the 3-year-old is walking around and doing whatever he wants to do kind of thing, like a wild little 3-year-old. And basically, she said, I find myself stuck between two wild meltdowns on a daily basis. That's a lot. Having an 11-month-old and then a 3-year-old that's walking around, that is a lot to be balancing when you're trying to shop, I can imagine.
That's those situations I imagine where there's an appeal of the child leash of like, I don't want running off, you know.
Stay here.
Obviously, that's controversial and maybe not the best course of action, but you can see the appeal.
It's hard.
When you have a wandering child and you have a smaller child that's you can't walk away from.
Exactly. So this mom was walking around the Trader Joe's, and all of a sudden, both of her children started throwing tantrums at the same time.
Oof.
She started kind of feeling embarrassed, thinking that everyone's going, oh, she's a bad mom. She's not taking care of her kids well enough. They're both throwing tantrums, stuff like that, because some people, unfortunately, do respond that way. Some people are not very understanding when you have kids, that sometimes you can't control your kids' feelings, and sometimes they have big feelings at bad times, especially when they're both happening at the same time. So anyways, an angel of a woman, says the mom, walked over and said, don't worry, honey, just remember no one is going to die right now. Which I thought that was kind of funny, but it does kind of put it in perspective. It's like, okay, I probably feel like the world is ending because both my kids are throwing a temper tantrum, but it's actually not going to end. Tomorrow will come. Tomorrow will be a better day. You know, like, just put it in perspective, right? No one's dying. It's not that bad. The mom was able to kind of get her kids calmed down, went back to doing her shopping, and then her 3-year-old had another meltdown in the middle of the store.
Of course.
So the mom started panicking again. The same woman noticed that she was about to cry, the mom, because she was feeling overwhelmed. And the
Probably
woman
embarrassed as well.
Oh, 100%.
Understandably.
I would be too. You know, it's unavoidable as a parent. Like, there's going to be moments like that. I've heard stories of when I was a little
We've experienced it with
toddler.
our dogs, and it's dogs.
Right,
not
exactly.
children.
When I was a toddler throwing a temper tantrum at a Walmart because I wanted a toy that I couldn't have. Like, it happens, you know? Anyways, so that same woman came over and decided to try to help the mom out and said to the little 3-year-old, I saw a bunny over there. Will you help me find it? And so they started playing like a little game with following the mom through the aisles of trying to find this imaginary bunny. And the 3-year-old got really into it. And so the 3-year-old stopped crying, stopped throwing a temper tantrum, and instead started following along through the aisles with this woman walking with the mom, trying to help her find this imaginary bunny playing this game. And while the mom did her shopping. Apparently, the mom praised the nice woman and shared a photo of her in the store with her daughter on Facebook, it sounds like. And in the comment section, to quote the article, the news anchor shared his perspective on the importance of reaching out to strangers even when it feels daunting. So often we're caught up in our own stuff, or we overthink the situation and convince ourselves out of doing what our heart tells us is right. Here's to supporting frazzled parents and everyone else who needs a little extra help sometimes.
Yeah, that's something to look forward to for when we have kids eventually.
Yeah, I know for myself that I do worry too much about what other people think, so I know that that's going to be something I struggle with, because you can't control your kids' emotions at all times.
No, but you can respond. You can, to a certain extent, control how you respond.
Right.
Because, I mean, you know, this is a positive podcast and try to, you know, not cast judgments. But like when I do, we are human. We feel judgmental sometimes, you know, when it comes to parents with their kids. I don't think I really feel judgmental about if a kid's having a meltdown. I feel like the judgment comes out with how the parent responds.
Right. If,
like,
if
especially
a parent
like,
is like screaming at them in the aisle or something like that, I get it.
Or like, you know, when we're in Disney World and we're waiting for the shuttles and there's a row of clocked out kids, but then there's a couple kids that are just crabby because, you know, it's been a long day and they're tired way past their bedpans and the parents are just fed up, you know, and that's when things get a little like, oh, okay, now it's a little awkward now because the parents getting really angry and stuff. And,
right. And you
so
know,
that's the part that you can control.
Understand too, like when you know when you're also crabby and tired, like we don't always respond the way we want to. So we give them that grace. There's another episode about that, giving people grace.
Yeah, no, it's not a good thing that I'm feeling judgmental. No. I'm just saying that if I am feeling judgmental,
I struggle with the same thing. I have to kind of remind myself to give people grace too in those moments and stuff. But yeah, 100%, I totally get that.
Sometimes a toddler's gonna toddler.
Sometimes a toddler's gonna toddler.
That's where it is comparable to your dogs. Is sometimes where it's like sometimes a dog's gonna dog and they're just gonna be crazy and like, oh, another dog, and just kind of lose their mind, and you just have to like try to control them. Like, hey, calm down. They're gonna go off your vibes. You know, obviously kids are gonna get older and they're gonna mature and they're gonna you know,
and they'll learn how to.
The dog comparison only works for a brief period of time.
Yes, eventually kids will learn to regulate their own emotions, and then you don't have to worry so much when you're in public. But you know, I'm sure that this is something I'll struggle with. So hearing an example of someone flipping that switch for that mom and instead being like, here, I'm going to help you out and I'm going to help invent a little game to keep your kid occupied so you can get your shopping done and then you can go home.
Yeah.
I think it's just so important. And I just think that was such a nice thing for that woman to do. So it's a great example of that. And
cost her nothing but her time.
Taking that opportunity. And again, I love that line at the end about how sometimes we overthink situations and convince ourselves out of doing what is our heart tells us is right. And I think that's so true that we kind of tend to overthink things and be like, oh, well, I'm not actually the right person to help in this situation. Or, oh, this person might think I'm weird if I try to help them. You know, there's so many things that we tend to overthink. But I think more often than not, I think people would appreciate if you do take up that, if you really notice that they need help and you can think of a way to help. I think more often than not, they're going to probably take it and be very thankful about it.
And there's just so many ways you can take initiative and like do what you think is right or try to be helpful or even just saying a kind word.
Yeah.
You know, like I remember, this is just random and not comparable necessarily to this specific story, but like, you know, when I was my first TV job working in production, there was a relatively new weatherman who was new and stuff, but he was doing a pretty good job overall. And with his news reports as well, they had to fill in every once in a while, were pretty good. And production crew were typically pretty jaded, pretty like negative. They didn't really spread the positivity, you know, like it wasn't necessarily that kind of work environment. It was a night job. It is what it is. Yeah. But when they were given the reports, because we'd be in the production booth, they would make comments to each other like, yeah, this kid's actually really good. This kid's really good. You know, would they ever share that? No, they never shared stuff like that. But eventually, this kid's super nice, and I was getting along with him. I took the initiative and I went out there and like, hey, just so you know, all these things are being said about you and you're reporting, and like I don't know if it's like reaching you at all, but I've been hearing all this stuff like in the production. This is what they're saying, and they think you're doing a great job.
Aww.
And he was, at least he told me that kind of made his day and stuff, because sometimes in news and at any job, I feel like it's much you get their criticisms more frequently than you get the positives.
100%. I think that goes for a lot of things in life, unfortunately, that we don't always hear the positive things because unfortunately, people don't always take the initiative to make sure you hear those. So that's really cool that you took that extra step to make sure that they were hearing what was being said behind their backs.
Of course, I lied. Just kidding. No.
And also, I feel like we've talked about this in another episode, I feel like, too, but sometimes it means even more to hear that other people are saying nice things behind your back than to hear directly to your face. Like, it's like, oh, wow, they're actually talking about how I'm doing a good job behind my back. That's really cool, you know?
Well, we've all had it where you hear that bad things are being said about you behind your back.
Exactly. But
especially
it
like in high school
when
age,
it's positive. It's like, oh, That's cool. I guess, I mean, they really mean it then, you know?
Well, I feel like also in that situation, I feel like people are more likely to be like, hey, just, these things are being said about you and they're not nice.
Right.
And that's like the courteous friend thing to do, make you aware of that situation. But I feel like it could be done the reverse as well,
Tell them the nice things that are being said.
Yeah.
Take that initiative. Take that opportunity.
Sorry if I hijacked the conversation.
No, not at all. That's great. That's a great example. And again, it shows it doesn't always require skill or anything like that to be helpful. Sometimes, like you said, it's just helpful, nice words. That can be really helpful to somebody, and taking that initiative to make sure that they know those nice things, those nice words. So if you notice somebody that's nervous for something that they're about to do, like a job interview, or they're gonna audition for something or whatever, being that person and be like, hey, you got this, you're gonna do a great job, things like that can really mean something to somebody. And if you didn't tell them that, they might just not audition, or they might not do the job interview, like, you know what I mean, like give that a little extra boost. Take that opportunity. So yeah,
because as we talked about before, like imagine living in a world where nobody took initiative. Imagine we live in a world where everybody takes initiative,
right? 100%.
We'd get so much done.
We would. We'd be so productive as a society of positivity. It'd be great. So yeah, obviously very idealistic, but it'd be awesome. So the more we can all do our little part, and again, going back to that listener story, I don't think one person can change the whole world. I agree with the listener with that. But yeah, if we can all make our little part of our world just a little bit better, think about how much of a difference that can make if everyone does that. If everyone takes those opportunities just a little piece at a time, how much better our world would be. Because a little bit by a bunch of people can really add up. So, yeah. Again, thank you so much to our listener for submitting this story today. And we hope you all will tune in next week for our episode, which is a wholesome Halloween. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got a lot of fun Halloween stories we're going to share that we have found. So we're very much looking forward to that. Also, if you have stories that you would like us to read on here, please send them to us at many options. You can share them to us via our Gmail, which is upliftingpositivestories@gmail.com. We have a Reddit thread, Uplift Positive Stories. You can just write them on there. There's a Facebook group you can join. Lots of options.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and leave a comment if you've had any positive stories you want to share.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you will tune in next week.
And stay positive.